Good day, kids! Welcome to Miss Jen's math tutorial. Today, we are going to learn about the properties of multiplication. At the end of this lesson, you shall have been able to identify the properties of multiplication and apply the properties of multiplication to solve equations. Multiplication has properties that can make the computation easier and faster. These are the zero property, identity property, commutative property, associative property, and distributive property. Let's start with zero property. Zero property states that any number multiplied by zero is zero. In other words, if you multiply any number by zero, the answer will always be zero. Let's take this as an example. How many fruits are there in the baskets? As shown in the picture, there are 4 baskets of 0 fruits. So in multiplication, we write this as 4 times 0 is equal to 0. Which means that there is no fruits that can be counted from any of the baskets. Here are some examples of equations that show zero property of multiplication. Next, we have the identity property of multiplication. It states that any number multiplied by 1 equals the number itself. Or, if you multiply any number by 1, the answer will always be the same number. 1 is the identity element in multiplication. Let's have an example. How many donuts are there? As shown in the picture, there is 1 box of 12 donuts. In multiplication, we write this as 1 times 12 is equal to 12, which means that there are 12 donuts in all. Here are some examples of equations that show the identity property of multiplication. The third property is commutative property of multiplication. It states that changing the order of the numbers does not affect the product, which means that the answer remains the same when multiplying numbers even if the order of numbers are changed. Let's take this as an example. How many candies are there in each group? In group A, we have 2 bags of 4 candies, which can be expressed as 2 times 4. While in group B, we have 4 bags of 2 candies that can be expressed as 4 times 2. To get the total, we have to multiply the numbers. So in group A, we have a total of 8 candies, and in group B, we also have a total of 8 candies, which means that 2 times 4 is equal to 4 times 2. This equation shows a commutative property of multiplication. Here are some examples of equations that show commutative property of multiplication. Now let's have the associative property of multiplication. It states that changing the grouping of the factors does not affect the product, which means that if we want to multiply any 3 or more numbers together, the answer will always be the same, irrespective of the order in which we multiply the numbers. For example, Let us find the product of the numbers 3, 5, and 2. We can group the numbers as 3 times the quantity of 5 times 2. Remember that parentheses tell us to do something first. So here's how we evaluate the expression. 5 times 2 is equal to 10, so the next step is 3 times 10. And the product is 30. We can also group the numbers as the quantity of 3 times 5 times 2. Then our answer will be 3 times 5 is 15, so the next step is 15 times 2. Then, the product is 30. As in both cases, the answer we get is the same, irrespective of the order in which the numbers are multiplied. Hence, multiplication is associative. Here are other equations that show associative property of multiplication. For the last property, let's have now the distributive property of multiplication. It states that multiplication can be distributed over addition. Let's have two cases when multiplying a sum by another number. Number 1, you add first, then multiply. And number 2, multiply each addend first and then add. Let's have the examples. For case number 1, add first the addends, then multiply. Let us consider the calculation 2 times the quantity of 10 plus 8. If we add first 10 and 8, then our answer will be 2 times 18 is equal to 36. For case number 2, multiply each addend first, then add. If we distribute multiplication over addition, then our answer will be 2 times the quantity of 10 plus 8 is equal to the quantity of 2 times 10 plus the quantity of 2 times 8 equals 20 plus 16. The answer is 36. As in both cases, the answers we get are the same. Hence, multiplication is distributive. Here are some more examples of equations that show distributive property of multiplication. Congratulations, kids! You just finished your lesson about the properties of multiplication.